We're so delighted this evening. It is a special night. Indigenous Ways acknowledges the traditional owners of country throughout Turtle Island and pays respect to elders past and present. We'd like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of these lands we reside on here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Pueblo people all around, and wherever you are beaming in from, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of the lands you are at so that we can all be here. Indigenous Ways is dedicated to bridging cultural exchange with people globally so that we can find love and compassion for each other in our different walkways, pathways. We can remove all the invisible barriers called walls and be able to learn from each other. This evening is a very special night. We have our beautiful little brother, Wakaya Wells, who is beaming in from Oregon this evening. He's originally from Oklahoma, comes from the Choctaw Nation. And we're going to go ahead and just get started. And Wakaya, thank you for joining us this evening. I wanted to say, yo, hey, or I wanted to say, yeah, hey. Then I said, no, do a Navajo traditional, ya hey. How are you doing this evening,
I'm
Wakaya?
so good. It's so good to be here. I'm thrilled. I'm happy to see your face again in Elena's face, and um, yeah, just excited to share and about my story and where I come from, and maybe throw a little bit of poetry and some prose in there. See what we have for tonight. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Wakaya. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started this evening?
Yes, so halito chumachukma sachifoya wakaya Wells mecha chatasia hoki Hugo Oklahoma mentili Klamath Modak Yehuskin Atali Shalom Bish Tuklo Sia mecha Hatakiklana Sia. Hello, how are you? My name is Wakaya Wells. I am from Hugo, Oklahoma. I am Chatasia Hoki. I'm Choctaw. And I live in Klamath Falls, Oregon, which is the ancestral and contemporary homelands of the Klamath, Modoc, and Yahuskin people. I am Two Spirit, and so I'm happy to be here. I am a writer. I write poetry. I write fiction. I'm working on a novel. My wife is also joining us tonight, Sarah, who is Lakota. We have a 4-month-old baby who was born on Christmas Eve. His name is Taloa. And so I have a little Lakota Choctaw family, which I am very blessed to be a part of and play my role in that. And it's been an exciting 4 months for me. And yeah, I've spent time in since university working with students and colleges and multicultural programs and diversity training. And I yeah I the last year has been very tough on me and a lot of us. The COVID-19 pandemic and actually terrible wildfire season where we live here in Oregon this last year. So it ended up being a cross country road trip with my pregnant wife. And we went to Oklahoma and Minnesota and then ended up back in Oregon finally for having our baby. And but it's good to be where we're at. I feel lucky. I feel blessed. And I'm actually planning on moving to Minnesota soon. And so that'll be another transition for me and my family. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And just again, I'm really happy to be here and for Tasha inviting me.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Wakaya. You are just so beautiful, and congratulations. You have a beautiful baby that has come into this world, and it's hard to believe that we just experienced an entire year of COVID-19 isolation, living in a tremendous amount of unknown and fear.
Mhm.
So, congratulations on your baby, healthy baby. As boy or girl?
Little boy, but we kind of blur the lines.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
people say, "Oh, you have a beautiful, she's so beautiful," I'm like, "Yeah, she is." So it's sort of gender. I believe is meant to be played with. So we have a little boy, but his name means to sing, and he has aunties and that buy him pink juicy couture clothing, and so he's just styling most of the time, and yeah, it's a little boy.
Beautiful. Oh, that's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. So, when we get started tonight, I have a whole bunch of questions. So, let's go ahead and get started now. The first thing that comes to mind is what attracted you to writing?
Yeah, I've been writing since I was probably in middle school, and initially I came to poetry because I grew up in the church setting, and um, because I'm two spirit and I'm out and I'm proud now, it's a different story for when I was a youth, and so poetry was really my way of dealing with that and dealing with shame and guilt and figuring out who or what my god is, and what was my place in all of that. And so I think what attracted me to writing and I think continues to this day is healing, and how I can write story and share story in a way that acknowledges that there's hardships and traumas that myself have experienced, my family have experienced, people like me, and people also different from me, but that there's a path somewhere, right, to healing and to something better, and something whole, that we're not always writing a tragedy, I guess, and I think that's for me what brought me to writing, and is why I'm still doing it today, years and years later. And so, and then now it's like I started with poetry, and then I did spoken word poetry, so more performance. And then as an adult, it was like, okay, I want to write a book someday. I want to write fiction. And so I just started writing fiction, had never written it before, and that's what I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years.
That's amazing. Um, so, you talk about Two Spirit, and can you talk about what that was like coming out for you, for your family, being in Oklahoma and stuff like that?
Yeah, good question. So when I grew up, Oklahoma is in the Bible Belt. Obviously, I didn't grow up I grew up in a small town, and I didn't grow up in a place that had a lot of visible out queer people. So I didn't see any representatives of that identity and all of its nuance, and so it was hard, like I grew up being called fag, and I didn't even know at the time that bisexual was a thing. It was like, you're gay or you're straight, and people definitely felt like I was on the gay side of things, and so I couldn't come to terms with it, because I was very involved in the church, and that being a good and bad experience, right? And so I didn't come out as bi until I was in college, and along the way in college, there were these experiences and people I'd be around that I think saw that part of me that I wasn't seeing in myself. And then it took when I was a junior in school, I had like a mental breakdown, basically, and came out as bi, and told my family. And at the time, I think they were more worried about like my mental health and my well-being than my sexuality. That was kind of like, okay, we'll like talk about that later. And then I think they came to terms with it more of like, the bisexual identity of like, okay, so what does that mean? You know, what is, are you attracted to men and women, or are you, is it a sexual thing? Is it like, how does romance come to be? And so I think I was lucky enough to be in a family that didn't disown me, or you know, didn't kick me out, which is, you know, sadly still a reality for a lot of queer folks. And um, but then in my adult life, after I left college, I started realizing, okay, so I identify as queer, and I'm realizing that doesn't the gender thing. And so I started playing around with the gender queer identity. And I sort of kept myself away from the two spirit identity because I thought, oh, that's a pan Indian thing. And I would gatekeep myself from identifying as two spirit. But then, in really just the last year or so, I had a friend who was in the program with me at IA, and shared with me, they said, I noticed you're using they, them pronouns now. I notice you have changed, like what's going on? And I kind of shared with them about my journey with coming out as genderqueer. And I told them about people in my life um, who I noticed, you know, like would wear skirts and jewelry and things, and I'd really uh, resonate with me. And I realized, oh, it's because that's me. I'm like that too. And but I realized coming out as two spirit that it's also a healing thing. Being a healer, you know, it's not just the masculine and feminine, which I think is a spectrum, but it's also, you know, two spirit people traditionally are healing people, and that's something that I come from my family being healers. And so, and I think that goes along with my writing as well.
Well, that's really interesting that you talk about the healing aspect of the connotation around two spirit because you're, from what little I know about your career path as in academic settings, dealing with people coming of age in this millennium time and coming to themselves. And identity is such a big thing when you're popping out of high schooling, popping out of your mom's and dad's home and coming into a college. It's such a shocking awakening. There's a lot of fear involved, and it's almost like going through a glass ceiling to go from home, especially like a reservation, and then coming to the mainstream world, which we can call the mainstream world because that's what it is. People call it the white world when they come from the reservation out here, but really, there's America is a land of immigrants, and anybody that's not indigenous from Turtle Island comes from ancestry of immigrants. So, working in those fields, in some way, I can see you as a healer, meeting all these students that are in cultural crisis or gender crisis or coming from domestic violence or addiction or something like that. And you're there to just ground them. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's been rewarding work, you know, like it's hard work, you know, dealing with bureaucracy and institutions,
Oh,
Western
yeah.
institutions. But, you know, for me, it's um, just empowering them. That's what I always tell my students. Like, I'm here to empower you, like who you want to be, what you want to do. Like, here's the microphone, here's the stage. Like, say what you have to say. And I really encourage them to live unapologetically, because I think for so many minorities, underrepresented students of color, LGBTQ community have grown up in a society um, that doesn't want them to do that, doesn't want them to have pride. You know, it asks them to be shameful in some ways. And I think, you know, I have worked with middle school students in today's age that are like already out, and they're like teaching me things. And so I do see that there's healing happening and generational shift that, you know, for when I was that young wasn't happening. And I'm seeing that happen in conservative, in rural areas. And so um, I feel inspired by that, you know, good change is happening.
Yeah, I think that's good change. So, what has been pondering my mind lately is the word ally.
Mm.
It seems to be a buzzword, ally. And the going seems to be like an ally is a good white person that comes and is well meaning and is supporting Indigenous causes, whatever it is, COVID 19, PPE equipment, LGBT, whatever, um, religious organizations. But allies looks to me more from my standpoint, being a part of a nonprofit, is us Indigenous nonprofits working together and collaborating on a big cause of awareness around healing, and healing that encompasses speaking the truth, and the truth coming from different genres of art expression, whether it's music, spoken word, poetry, painting, whatever it is. It's telling a story, telling your story, so that maybe somebody out there that has some juxtaposition with you can say, wow, this guy's doing it, and he's from Oklahoma, and he's come out as genderqueer, and he's just letting people deal with it however they're going to deal with it, however the different groups of people. So allies is something I'm going to start talking about more on platforms, because I think allies is everybody. Everybody can be each other's allies. Can you talk a little bit about that? What does an ally mean to you? And then we'll go to the real
Yeah.
questions, because I've kind of veered off.
No, it's okay. Definitely my work and university work includes allyship all the time. This Monday I did a workshop on racism and talking to these nursing students about, what role are you going to play, right? Because I'm trying to share with you, and what I hope you get out of this 2-hour workshop is that you have a role in racism, and I think for white folks, when they hear things like diversity or minority or inclusion or whatever, they think, oh, that's for those people over there, that's for the other, that's for the brown and black folks, that's for the gay folks over there. And what I try to get allies, if I'm building that bridge, is to see is that you have a role, you have a voice too, and it's not always on the marginalized folks, and it shouldn't be on the marginalized folks in a room or in a group or organization, a city, in a country, to do all the educating, to do all the work. This country has flourished on the labor and on the stolen lands of Indigenous people and enslaved labor of African folks, and so we've done our part, and we're still doing it, right? Because we care about our families and our communities, and we're going to keep taking care of our own. But at some point, you know, white folks have to understand they have to show up. They have to show up, and they have to uh, put the right people in the room. And it's not just including people. It's not just diversity, right? Like, oh, we have all different kinds of people here. It's also saying, okay, I'm gonna shut up now, and I'm gonna let this Black trans woman talk. I'm gonna let this Indigenous Two-Spirit person talk about their experience or their expertise, because as a white person, I don't know. And for me, looking the way I do, I have privilege too as a white person. I walk in this world and people think I'm white, and so I acknowledge that, even though I'm Indigenous, and that sometimes I have to shut up too. And so I think that's all a part of allyship. And a lot of people are um, thinking more about, okay, what's past allyship? Is it institutional change agents? Is there something more that they're doing than just waving their flag, or changing their Facebook status, or sharing? Is there another word that's out there that really shows and highlights that they're doing work? They're not just supporting from the sidelines, they're standing in front sometimes and protecting the more vulnerable population. So that's, for me, what I think about when I think about allies.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for talking about that. So before I ask you to read one of your pieces for us this evening, I'd like to ask you about mental health, because I have read some of your literature, and you've got some great character development with some mental health characters that you've written about. Can you help us break down some walls of misunderstanding about what does bipolar mean, and what does treatment, how do people approach that, and what is misunderstood about it in society in general because of stereotypes and stigmatisms.
Yeah, I think for me, coming from the community I did, and I think it's common in Native communities as well, of when you're dealing with certain things mentally, that you don't talk about it, that's a quiet thing. I think in some religious communities too, I found that that sort of thing doesn't um, don't some people don't see as real, don't see depression, don't see anxiety as a real um, diagnosable thing, a scientific thing. And so that was sort of the community that I come from. And I didn't think I needed counseling. I didn't think that was the space for me. And but I realized over time, and whenever I had my breakdown, and at I think I was 21, and got diagnosed as bipolar disorder 1, I realized a lot of the things that I had suppressed, right? And because of that sort of stigma that was placed on mental health, and not asking for help. And so for me, bipolar 1 means that you have had a manic episode, so a full blown manic episode. And if you've had one, you have potential for another, right? That's just kind of how it works. And so bipolar 2 airs more on the side of someone having depression more than mania. And then the mania they experience is in very short uh, spurts. They call it hypomania. Whereas for me, my first manic episode, when I had it, um, I stayed up for what initiated it, among many things, right? Is I was sleeping on my sister's couch in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was on a break from college, and college was so fast paced that being back in Oklahoma, I could, it was like a culture shock. I came out as bisexual. There were protests going on at my school. I was struggling with who I wanted to be after college and what I wanted to do. And so I ended up staying up for 4 straight days. I tried to sleep, I couldn't. I didn't eat. And then I ended up in a mental hospital for about 8 days. And even after I got out, I was still, I would say, experiencing some form of mania for like 2 more months. And then recovery is up and down, and trying medications and trying to get in a routine. And so that was the biggest shift in my life. It was that manic episode. And I had a manic episode several months ago, after like I said, traveling across the country during the pandemic and the wildfires, and evacuating, my wife being pregnant, being back home. I had a shorter manic episode because I had experienced it before. I sort of knew a little bit better about how to um, bring the walls in on how long it was going to last. And so I think the biggest thing for me when I think about bipolar disorder is, I think that, um, and I don't know if other people feel this way, other bipolar folks, but I do find that if it were a different time, um, before colonization, before assimilation, before boarding schools, before the attack on Native spirituality that's happened in this country, I just wonder what it would have been. I just wonder what bipolar disorder would have been. I wonder, because for me, when I have manic episodes, I start speaking Choctaw more than I ever have. And I remember things, and I can say full sentences. And I was learning Spanish at the time, and I was speaking Spanish. Um, and I find that a lot of things are revealed to me too, while also being in psychological danger, and not being able to take care of myself, and um, sort of being hurtful. I can be hurtful too during a manic episode. So there's a lot wrapped up in it. But I think that for me, mental health, and since I was diagnosed, anywhere I go, I'm an advocate. You know, I'm sharing with students, I'm sharing with people to, when you go to college, go to the therapist, like it's free usually, or, you know, do you have someone to talk to, because life's hard, and sorting through things takes time. And I've been in therapy almost nonstop for seven or 8 years, and I'm still learning things about when I was 8 or 9 years old. And so, um, yeah, I just think the more we can talk about it and be open with it, and that, you know, and then also that mental health issues run in my family. You know, it's not just Wakaya over here dealing
Yeah.
with this. You know, it's definitely hereditary, and yeah, so it's a big part of my life, and I have to be careful about decisions I make, and making sure I sleep good, and that I have a
Yeah.
routine. And
Yeah.
because when you skip out of that as a bipolar person, it can be dangerous.
Wow. That sounds like a tremendous amount of intense love that you've experienced for yourself and the people around you, supporting and loving and becoming aware because of your openness, because you're willing to talk about it, about your two spirit identity, about your um, bipolar diagnosis and what it means. I learned more from you than I've ever learned in this short time about bipolar. Because I've always been curious about it, but I just wanted to hear it in a way I could understand it. And I know there's a lot more for me to learn about it, but thank you. But before we let too much time go by, I do want to hear one of your pieces of your
Yeah,
choice, and then let's go on to more questions because I just want to
yeah.
talk
This
to you.
one fits good. This one fits good. So thank you. So this one's called Time to Kill, or See What You've Been Missing. Ever wondered why doctor's office feel like prison, care, place where we supposed to feel helped, bossed around, can't move, wait there, but waiting for 6 months till benefits kick back in. Referred here, got info lost on way over. Mail doesn't deliver to new house. Lost phone, stolen, records changed. I've been waiting. 2 waiting rooms now. I gotta go. Bathroom not open to public or not clean. Why are we here? Scared of you anyway. Room cold, instruments cold, dark, your hands cold, me trembling. Been here before. I recognize you too. I know I don't want your hands to touch me. Not then, not now, not ever. Don't tell me what I need, that I'm late. Don't ask me what took me so long to come in. I've come in too much to last lifetimes, this one and before and again after. Tired of singing my death song. I want it to rain. I want my feet to be covered in mud, wet dirt, puddles. I don't need this prescription as bad as you want to give it. What does rain cost me? What does clean air cost me here? I make my own glasses, shape my own pills out of clay, talk myself in the mirror, make my own therapy. I'm the doctor now.
Woo! Go, everybody. Let's just breathe that in for a minute. Take some breaths. That was good. That was powerful, Wakaya Wells. Um, that's a read again poem right there. That's a read again many times over, and getting many different things every time you read from it. Um, on a personal level, first person point of view, second person point of view, third person point of view, all of them work with that poem. Beautiful work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Um, so with your let's move to your fiction. With your character development, do you write from mixed cultures, or do you write from Native American standpoint mostly, or do you do gender variations, or are you to the point in your writing where you can get one point of that guy that you like and you want to add his that little part of his character into this character you're developing, and then grab something from that woman you like and throw her character into that, and then just kind of create this person that eventually just all of a sudden has a voice of their own where your pen just takes off, man. You're just like, whoa, this person's now a real live spirit for me that's got a life of their own, and the story just takes off. Or can you talk about your character development?
Yeah. So I think I write across races, across genders, because that's been my experience, right? Like how I think some writers in the age we're in now it's kind of contentious about, can a white person write a black character? Can a native person write, across racial lines? And so that was something we talked a lot about in our master's program. And so, but I find that if I'm humble, if I'm trying to be genuine, if I'm self-implicating, if I'm writing from the first person and the characters messing up and hitting roadblocks, then I find that I can write in a way that is respectful and that is not a trope or is not a stereotype. And I think working in diversity, and understanding those sort of concepts has helped me in my fiction writing. And so, the novel I'm working on opens up and the character's in a mental hospital. And so when you're in a mental hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there's going to be people from a lot of different backgrounds, and Oklahoma is like that too. It's very diverse, even though people might not see it that way. And so my characters, when they sort of form and get to a point, if I write enough of them across chapters of like in dialogue, I find myself saying, okay, no, they wouldn't talk like that, or they would maybe skip a word, or and language changes like that so much, in our dialects that we speak. Even in Oklahoma, in the Choctaw Nation, for example, the town I grew up in is 20 or so miles from where my mom grew up, and my dad, being from Texas, will say, "Oh, well, you speak different," or 15 miles this way is close to the Red River, and there's a river bottom drawl to how people speak. And so
Hmm.
I try to honor that in my character development. And I think too, writing characters that I don't like if they're bad people, and what makes them bad, but also how that might affect the way they speak or the way they look or the way they smell. um,
Hmm.
that all goes into when I'm thinking of what ends up on a page. And it might not be fully thought out like that when I'm sitting writing something new, but over time and looking at it, it can change, and they'll develop more.
Gosh, I just got a whole slew of questions in my head suddenly, but I'll just ask one right now. And that is, when you're developing your characters, you got your main character, right? You got your protagonist, you got your antagonist, and then you got all these other characters around uh, those two beings that need to be developed. Are you comfortable developing a character in, say, like, would you be able to develop a character that's black, or would you be able to develop a character that's Japanese? And let them be the protagonist and antagonist, and maybe do some research into some of their vernacular and dialects and some of their context, and be able to just uh, let Japan come you, if you will. You know what I mean? Or is that
No,
possible?
I think there is a line that I try to be careful about, because I don't want to appropriate someone else's culture
Okay.
or identity. There are Black folks in my novel. I think for me, when I went to college and went to Dartmouth and was in a big Native community, I was surprised because I just thought everyone grew up and was around Black people. And then I realized, I was like, oh, that's kind of unique for my experience, at least among the friends that I made there in the community that was there. But so for me and my experience, and what I write is, even though it's fiction, it also is very autobiographical. And so I can't write a story and there not be Black folks in it. Black folks and Black community is influenced in my life in so many ways growing up that I wouldn't be who I am without that community and without those folks and teachers and aunties and friends and classmates and all of that throughout my life. And so um, I don't uh, I don't really research when I'm developing certain characters like that. If I'm directly connected to that in my own experience, but I don't know what it would be like if I wouldn't know the first step of being like, oh, I'm gonna try to write something that I don't know, and that's a saying, write what you know. And so I don't ever try to go outside of that because I feel like I'm being disrespectful even entering that space.
Thank you for sharing that. The reason I asked that is because I was wanting to develop a deaf character that I was writing about. So I decided to go to a book written about a deaf character as the protagonist. And then I just saw the name. It was a male name, the writer. And then I read the book and I was blown away at all the stuff that just you wouldn't think about as a hearing person. Uh, that like where did this guy get privy to that information from? And then I did a little bit of research about him and saw all the books that he's written, and he's just been all over the globe, and he's just taken on not just deaf culture and being taking on the police as a deaf woman. The book I read was fascinating. So I was just like, how do people do that? That must be so hard because I
Yeah,
write what I know as well. So that's awesome. All right. Well, before we keep going, would you mind reading us a little fiction piece?
yeah, absolutely. So this is at least right now how the book starts, but as you know, that changes. So
Okay.
I come from bad blood, not from some chief 4 generations back, the one that everyone still knows and brings respect to the family name, or the great uncle who had visions and performed ceremonies. My granddad was blind and an alcoholic. He sold his land off and converted to the Christian religion. Blood rises in the muddy, boggy river. Kids in Choctaw County find methamphetamines before Jesus. Can't front nobody's birthright and what's owed. I'm holding my own hands now, sitting in a small room with a desk and a computer, a round black trash can next to the door. The light reflects off shiny beige laminate floors. I got brought here. Mama left me to get better. And for some reason, Uncle Charlie and Aunt Sherry can't help me like they have before, like they used to do for everyone else. The mouse sits on a purple pad. I flick it with my finger, and the computer screen awakens. Shiloh Psychiatric Hospital. You're probably hungry, huh? A woman stands in the doorway in sky blue scrubs. She is a tall, big woman with dark brown hair. Her cheeks have freckles on them. Her skin is warm and worn from the sun, a shade of white so many in Oklahoma know. Before I can answer, she says, do you think you can eat? I'll go get you a plate. I can't eat, I say, but she is already gone. On the desk is a calendar, a large paper one that you tear off at the end of the month. It is March. There are scribbles in blue ink on a few days. Staff meeting, system reset. I hear a clock, the sound of a second hand moving. I turn to the wall behind me and see a wooden octagon shaped one with the words regulator written across the glass face. Not much different from the one that used to hang in the back of the church in Unger. It's 11:30 a.m. The hair on my arms stand up, bombs booming, followed by sizzles, laughter, and now I breathe in smoke. It is nighttime. I hear the sounds of the cicadas coming from the woods. We call them locusts here. Next to the framed picture of Jesus, the clock hangs on the wall like I remember, along with the wooden board and all the black and white numbers. Attendance today, 23. I smell the old carpet. Ahead to the right is the bathroom. Across from it is the kids' playroom, its door ajar. A toy bin sits there. A baby doll lies on the floor with blue crayon stained on its shirt, head twisted backwards, facing the glass window. I see the chipped and lopsided front doors and reach out to open them. We are shooting off fireworks on the grass in front of the church. There's kids, cousins running around with sparklers, hard gravel kicking up behind their feet. I walk to the edge of everyone. Below the church, a farm truck passes by on the highway. Now I see Granny Marie sitting in a lawn chair, coughing and laughing and clapping her hands next to her daughters, my aunts. Just behind them, I see the wood sign that reads Holy Ghost Tabernacle. A procession of dancers emerge from the same building I just came from, singing and shuffling their feet. I can't figure out who or what song. There's this deep humming. I hear the vibrations in their voices, a call and response. Choctaw shirts, dresses, blue and green ribbon, beads match the colors of the fireworks in the sky, exploding. What is it that we're celebrating? I ask. Rabbits, a little boy says behind me, hair thick and blonde with dirt on his face. Rabbits, rabbits, he smiles and starts running behind the scattered lines of chairs with his hands lowered to the ground, trying to catch what is being chased. Jesus, Papa Vernon cries out, Holy Ghost, will the Spirit move tonight?
Wow. Woohoo. That's a book I want to read. That you got some kind of formula down there. Like more, more, more. That's wonderful. Thank you
Thank
very much for sharing that with us, Wakaya. That's so beautiful. I like all the details, the internal, the external. Beautiful. Good
thank you.
character development there for sure. So I'd like to hear about some of your watershed moments or a moment, and that's one. And what has been who has been your most inspiring source of creative processing? Can you talk to us about who influences your work?
Yeah. So I have to say before I even talk about that, that like I was in a master's of higher education for a week when on that Sunday when all the work was due. This was several years ago when I was like, I don't want to do this. And my wife, I don't even think we were married yet, is sitting on the couch and says, You're a writer. You want to write. There's a program in Santa Fe. And so I would say I wouldn't be here and the book wouldn't be where it's at without her and her support and showing me what's right in front of me that I didn't realize was there. Um, and then I guess just obviously I talked about my mental health experience. Going inpatient changed my life. You know, I came out as bi and queer and um, I knew then that I wanted a new name. That's how I got my name Wakaya, which means to stand up. And so I think that's the watershed moment. And I think that everything else sort of falls in with that some way or somehow. You know, I come from a family who spiritual family that lay hands on people, that prophesy over people, and you know, they've been an inspiration to me, my grandparents, my aunts and my uncles. And um so you know, one of my aunts told me one time to hold on to your prophecies. You know, don't forget your prophecies. And I used to think that you know, prophecies can change. You know, when someone tells you something that you're going to be or who you're going to be, you might think that there's an image or something that comes to mind, and then years later it's changed. And for me, you know, I was sitting in therapy when I realized, you know, I used to be a preacher, and I still would love to preach again one day. But when I first preached, it was on an Easter Sunday, and my family, aunts and cousins would always say, "Oh, well, you know, your grandpa used to prophesy a long time ago that there was a man coming up the road with the book in his hand. He was going to save the church." And you know, they would tell me that right before I preached for the first time. And I realized years later, you know, I used to think, oh, I'm going to be the preacher. I'm going to have the church, and that's going to be me. That's going to be my role. And then for years, I thought that I was going to go to seminary. And then I realized more recently of like, well, maybe that book's not a Bible, you know, maybe that book is this novel I'm working on, and that's my role. And but my family obviously has been a huge inspiration. And people that come before me that aren't afraid to share their truth and uh, be vulnerable. And when I see that and I see people loving themselves and being honest with themselves and not being afraid to be out there, even if there's repercussions, that's for me what I mean. I think that's why I'm named. Why I'm named that. My family named me. My sister, my mom named me Wakaya because it was, stand up to it, stand up and tell. And I think that's what I'm growing into and trying to be. And um, so I'd say that's probably what. My inspiration, yeah.
You're certainly a role model for many people, Wakaya. You got it going on, you got it together, and you're a beautiful, beautiful being. That's all I can say. You're a beautiful, beautiful being. Thank you for being with us this evening. And finally, I'd like to ask you a bunch more questions, but I'll have to do that for a phone call one of these evenings between me and you because I sure like your energy and I want to take some more of that for my own healing. So you've shared a lot to help me too. So thank you. Finally, what is your definition for thriving in purpose?
Yeah, I think when I think about purpose, I think am I showing up? Am I showing up to play the role that I'm meant to play, and that's in who I am to myself. Obviously, that's who I am to my family. Am I being a good partner? Am I being a good spouse? Am I being a good parent? Um, am I honoring the day for what it brings and then coming at it from in a good way? As my wife's Lakota people would say, in a good way. And I think for me that's what purpose is am I showing up? And I think thriving can mean a lot of things. I think for me it starts with am I taking care of myself, right? Because if I'm not taking care of myself, not only can I not thrive, but it's hard for me to live. And so self care and mental health are so important to what I'm about and how I have to be. And so yeah, am I being honest with myself and what I want and where I want to go? Um, and sometimes I'm a fool, like honestly, and I try to be as authentic with that as I can, of really just screaming out of like, I don't know why I'm going through this, and I don't know why God put me here, why Creator put me here, but there's got to be some reason. There's got to be something at the end of this. And I think for me, thriving is trusting those emotions when you're feeling them, even if you don't understand them, and
Hmm.
trusting that there's something on the other side that's good and is going to teach you something, and you're going to arrive at something and be all the better because you were trusting the process to get there.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and invite people that want to come on to speak as soon as Elena does her commercial break.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. Wakaya, what great, beautiful medicine. You mentioned authenticity. So what a wonderful open book and example you are of that, of just deep love, deep healing. And I just feel all the so much better just in your presence and what you've had to share in your journey this evening. Thank you so much for blessing all of us in the wisdom circle, whether you're here live or you're tuned into the recording. What a wonderful gift. Thank you, Wakaya. So, with that, I'll just do a quick commercial break before we bring everyone in. Next week, which will be the 12th, in the wisdom circle, we've got the beautiful Rochelle Edekawiski, who comes from the little transverse band, uh, bay bands of the Oadaga Indians. She and her husband was here a few months back. She is here, and we're so thrilled because they do a lot of Indian policy. Um, making and changing policy within the nations to make things better for us all. So we'll look forward to her sharing her wisdoms. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for blessing us. We have been beaming out since the 1st of April 2020, and that was to keep all our communities connected during this time. That means we've had over 80 presenters, Native American, Indigenous, LGBTQIA2+, and deaf and hard of hearing presenters who have shared with us in this circle. You can find those at our website, IndigenousWays.org. All of their archives are there. And in the next 48 hours, you will also see wakayas that will be there. If you need to go back to take in this incredible medicine from wakaya, please do that and then share it out to all the links of all your peeps. Down below us, you'll see all our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. It goes on and on and on. If you're on one of those pages at the moment, please like our page if you haven't. That helps us, and we're greatly appreciative of this. You'll see below me is an extraordinary being. His name is Crescesiano. So before Crescesiano was the beautiful Martin. They are our ASL interpreters this evening, and we're very grateful for them to make access available to all. All of our events have ASL interpreters. All of our events are free because we don't want anyone left behind. And that's also courtesy to our sponsors. They include the Native American Advice Fund, the Santa Fe Community Foundation, the New Mexico Arts, and Westaff. And we also have a new grantor, which is the Rio Rancho Historic area that we're very, very grateful of to be able that we can be here. Thank you also to our individual donors that have kept us here for 13 months. If you're able to, these are our links also at our website, IndigenousWays.org, donate. There's also snail mail, postal. This is the most important thing we wanted to share with you. This weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Mother's Day, we have the Indigenous Healing Festival. It is all online. So if you are thriving because of this incredible medicine of what Wakaya has just shared, we're having 6 hours on Saturday, 5.5 hours on Sunday of all these incredible Native American, Indigenous peoples coming in through the circle. Our theme is survivance, which is resilience and survival, whether that be through the last year or our historic survivance as a peoples. And so in saying that, we'd love for you to be there. You can register. They're going very, very quickly. We're going to be probably having the waiting list starting tomorrow. So if you haven't registered, go to IndigenousWays.org. It is free. We have ASL interpreters. We have 2 deaf and hard of hearing presenters. One's James Woodenlegs. He's going to be sharing about the history of Indian Sign Language and also teaching Indian Sign. We've also got Sarah Young-Bear Brown, who will be in on Sunday, Mother's Day, talking about the survivance of mothers. Our featured artist is Buffy St. Marie, specifically addressing survivance. And also Keith Zicola, looking at survivance through music. He also has a wonderful concert on Sunday. All of that information, the registration, who's on, what they're doing is going to be at the website. So please go to that to register. We'd love to see you in our electronic circles then. So in saying that, if you're in Zoom and you want to come and meet or say anything to this beautiful Wakaya, please turn on your cameras. While you're doing that, if you're in social media and you want to say a few things, please type something and Tash will share it.
All right. The first comment we got is from Courtney, and Courtney is saying, Thank you so much, Wakaya, for your powerful presence and gift of time. I am always so grateful to learn from you and your words. Thank you, Indigenous Ways, for creating this sacred space. Thank you very much, Courtney. We appreciate that. And would you like to say anything, Wakaya?
Courtney is one of my best friends, so just shout out to her for coming on. Does a lot of amazing work in Southern Oregon, organizing and supporting marginalized and oppressed people. So I'm always happy to be in her presence.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, Sarah Bevels, she says, yes, he is. He's been amazing, beautiful all his life.
Yeah.
Love you, Wakaya. All right. And let's go to Cleary. Would you like to say anything?
My name's Rachel Cleary. I'm from Brisbane, Australia. Just thank you very much for this space, this sacred space, and thank you very much for sharing today. Thank you.
Right on, Rachel. Thank you for blessing us in from Aussie. You know, I lived in where was it? Magnetic Island, a little bit north from you before coming here. Really grateful that you're here. And if you want more of this, sign up for this free festival that we've got going. But thanks, Rachel, and being here.
And of course, that's going to be our Saturday is your Sunday. So yeah, you're I think 18 hours ahead of us. Thank you very much, Rachel. And I love Brizzy. Let's go to Donna. Donna from Ohio.
Well, thanks. It's really nice to be here this evening. Wakaya, that your work is just gets me right in here. And your story. It's amazing, you know, the resilience that Tosh and Elena are focusing on this year. And I think it comes right through you to all of us. So thank you so much for your words.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Beautiful,
Donna.
beautiful.
And
Donna.
we've got Carlin Cruz, who says, Carlin, would you like to speak for yourself?
Okay, I typed a message, but also I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate your bravery so much. And speaking your truth, it's not an easy thing to do. Been through that myself, so I appreciate that so much. And I also want to let you know that this is a weird thing, but I'm not a good reader. I am a very poor reader. I have dyslexia. So reading is actually a labored job for me, but of course I've had to do it all my life. But I'm going to read your book. You got that one for sure. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to read that book. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, if you don't want to read it, I promise there will definitely be me reading it too. Like audio book, I think. Yeah, like so.
Nice.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah.
Bet.
Wakaya, on that note, do you have a link where people can go to what
Some of
you
your
have
writing
at this moment?
Yeah, so I just started in the last year trying to publish more work. And so right now I have 2 pieces on the rumpus, RUMPUS. There's an essay I wrote that came out, I think, right the day before the election. So in November, there's an essay I have there. And then just a couple weeks ago, I have a poem called Jesus Was an Indian. And so that's on their site now as well.
Well, I just want to say real quickly on Carlin's behalf, Carlin has also self-published the book, and Carlin is a trilingual interpreter. So do not believe Carlin when he says he can't read. He is a very genius human being. So Carlin, you're amazing.
I read, but it is a labor. It's just a true labor.
Okay.
And writing.
How did you become an interpreter then? No, I'm just kidding.
I have no idea.
Carlin, I'm in the same boat. And so when we're hosting and it's time for reading, like this is midnight for me, but it's not really time-wise, but it feels like midnight. I'm usually getting ready for bed at this hour. But when it's time for reading, I'm like, you can't see this, but I'm tapping Tash thing like, can
Yeah,
you
she
read
wants me to
that?
read
Because
it.
I can't read it.
Right.
So we're
Well-
in the same boat. You know, and saying that we're almost at the top of the hour.
I know, but I
so-
want to
Oh,
give
yes.
Arletta. Arletta, would you like to say something? My best friend Arletta from Lukachukai. Arletta, hello. Do you want to say anything? And that's Rodney, her friend. He lives in Saley. Those are our Navajo deaf brother and sister. And do you want to say anything, Arletta, or finish? Okay.
All right.
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
It's great that you're here, Aletta. Rodney, thank you. Just thinking about what Donna said, in our festival, we're asking all those that are involved, and this is up to you, and I forgot to mention it in our little ad. We've got, if you want to do a survivance video, 30 seconds, and there's a little link to where to upload that. We're going to be sharing those through our breaks in the festival. So if anyone's in here that would like to do that, share their experience of the last year or historically, we'd love to hear from you. And there's
the baby.
Yes.
Oh, look at him.
gorgeous.
You're gonna be 6'7" like your dad. NBA
That
basketball
is
player.
excellent.
All
Hey,
right.
Sarah, great
Well,
to see you all.
I want to thank everyone on Zoom, social media, and those watching the recording and those watching in the future. Thank you for watching this in the future. This will be in our permanent archives. And thank you, as always, to our ASL interpreters. We'll see you on Wednesday next week for Rochelle Etawagashik. That's ETTAWAGESHIK. And lastly, let's give it up for Wakaya Wells.